I never thought the woman who smiled at my wedding would one day try to end my life. But when I saw her slip that white powder into my glass, everything became crystal clear. She wanted me gone. She'd been planning it for months. And the worst part? No one would have believed me if her own husband hadn't drunk from that glass instead. This is my story, and trust me, you won't believe how it ends. My name is Sarah, and for the longest time, I thought I had it all figured out. A loving husband named Michael, a beautiful home in the suburbs, 2 adorable kids, and what I believed was a supportive family. Michael was everything I'd ever wanted. Kind, hardworking, loyal. We met in college, fell in love over coffee dates and late-night study sessions, and built a life together that felt like a fairy tale. But every fairy tale has a villain, and mine wore pearls and baked cookies. Her name was Margaret, my mother-in-law, and from the very first day I met her, I knew something was off. Don't get me wrong, she was polite. Almost too polite. The kind of polite that feels rehearsed, like she'd practiced every smile in the mirror before meeting me. At our first dinner together, she asked me all the right questions. Where did I grow up? What did my parents do? What were my plans for the future? But her eyes told a different story. They were cold, calculating, like she was sizing me up, deciding whether I was worthy of her precious son. Michael didn't notice, or maybe he didn't want to. He'd always been a mama's boy, and honestly, I found it endearing at first. He called her every Sunday, visited her every other weekend, made sure she was taken care of. I thought it was sweet. I didn't realize it was a warning sign. The first real crack in the facade came 6 months after our wedding. We'd just found out I was pregnant with our first child, a boy. Michael was over the moon. He called his mother immediately, expecting her to share in our joy. But Margaret's reaction was strange. "That's wonderful, darling," she said over the phone, her voice tight. "I'm so happy for you both." But when we visited her the next day to celebrate, she barely looked at me. She hugged Michael, kissed his cheek, congratulated him like he'd accomplished it all on his own. And when she finally turned to me, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You must be so excited, Sarah," she said, her tone dripping with something I couldn't quite place. "Being a mother is such a big responsibility. I hope you're ready for it." It felt like a challenge, like she was testing me. Michael didn't notice. He was too busy looking at baby catalogs with his father, Robert. Robert was the complete opposite of Margaret. Warm, gentle, genuinely kind. He congratulated me with tears in his eyes, told me I was going to be an amazing mother, and even joked about teaching his grandson how to fish. I loved Robert. He was the only reason I could tolerate family dinners. But Margaret? She was a storm waiting to happen. Over the next few years, Margaret's behavior became increasingly difficult to ignore. She criticized everything I did, the way I dressed, the way I decorated our home, the way I raised our children. When our son, Ethan, was born, she insisted on being in the delivery room. Michael thought it was a good idea. She was his mother, after all. But I felt violated. This was supposed to be our moment, and she made it about herself. She held Ethan before I did. She cooed over him, tears streaming down her face, while I lay there exhausted and ignored. "My grandson," she whispered, clutching him to her chest. "My beautiful boy. Not our boy. Hers." When our daughter, Lily, was born 2 years later, the pattern repeated. Margaret took over. She decided what clothes they wore, what foods they ate, what activities they did. And whenever I tried to assert myself, she'd turn to Michael with this wounded look, like I was attacking her. And Michael? He always took her side. "She's just trying to help Sarah," he'd say. "She means well." But she didn't mean well. She wanted control, and I was the obstacle standing in her way. Things escalated when Lily turned 3. We'd planned a small birthday party at our house, just family and a few of Lily's friends from preschool. I'd spent weeks preparing. I baked the cake myself, decorated the house, organized games. I wanted it to be perfect. Margaret showed up early, unannounced. "I thought I'd help set up," she said, breezing past me with bags of decorations I hadn't asked for. Before I could protest, she'd rearranged everything. My decorations were taken down. Her decorations went up. She even replaced the cake I'd made with one she'd bought from an expensive bakery. "Yours looked a little homemade," she said with a tight smile. I wanted Lily to have something special. I stood there speechless. Michael was upstairs getting the kids ready and hadn't seen any of it. And when the guests arrived, everyone complimented Margaret on how beautiful everything looked. No one mentioned me. That night, after everyone had left, I broke down. I told Michael everything. How his mother had taken over, how she'd undermined me, how she made me feel invisible in my own home. He sighed. "Sarah, she's just excited. She loves the kids. Can't you just let this go?" That's when I realized he would never choose me over her. Not when it mattered. And Margaret knew it. I tried to keep the peace. I really did. For months, I bit my tongue, smiled through gritted teeth, and let Margaret do whatever she wanted. But something inside me was breaking. I felt like a stranger in my own life. Then came the incident that changed everything. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon. I'd picked up the kids from school and was helping Ethan with his homework when my phone rang. It was Michael. "Hey, hun," he said, sounding distracted. "Mom's coming over for dinner tonight. I forgot to mention it earlier. Can you whip something up?" My stomach dropped. "Michael, I didn't plan for that. I was going to make something simple for the kids." "It's fine," he interrupted. "Just make your usual pasta. She won't mind." But she would mind. Margaret always minded. I spent the next 2 hours frantically preparing a meal I knew she'd critique. I made pasta from scratch, a salad with homemade dressing, garlic bread, even a dessert. By the time she arrived, I was exhausted. Margaret swept in, kissed Michael and the kids, and barely acknowledged me. She sat at the head of the table, my seat, and waited to be served. Dinner was tense. Margaret picked at her food, her fork pushing the pasta around her plate like it was contaminated. "This is interesting, Sarah," she said finally. "Did you use a new recipe?" "No, it's the same one I always use," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She smiled. "Well, perhaps you should try something different next time. This is a bit bland." Michael said nothing. He just kept eating, eyes fixed on his plate. That's when I snapped. "Margaret," I said, my voice cold. "If you don't like my cooking, you're welcome to leave." The table went silent. Ethan and Lily stared at me with wide eyes. Michael's fork clattered onto his plate. Margaret's face twisted into something ugly. "Excuse me?" "You heard me?" I said, standing up. "I'm tired of you criticizing everything I do. This is my home, my family, and if you can't respect that, then you're not welcome here." For a moment, I thought she might actually leave, but then she turned to Michael, tears welling in her eyes. "Michael, did you hear how she spoke to me? Your own mother? And just like that, I was the villain." Michael stood, his face flushed. "Sarah, apologize. Right now. Number." His jaw clenched. "Apologize, or she's staying here tonight." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. This wasn't the man I'd married. This was a boy who couldn't stand up to his mother. "Fine," I said quietly. "She can stay. I'll be upstairs." I left the table, went to our bedroom, and locked the door. I heard Margaret's muffled voice downstairs, playing the victim. I heard Michael consoling her, and I heard my children asking where Mommy went. That night, I realized something. Margaret wasn't just controlling, she was dangerous, and if I didn't do something, she'd destroy my family. Over the next few weeks, Margaret's visits became more frequent. She'd show up unannounced, stay for hours, and act like she owned the place. Michael encouraged it. He thought it was good for the kids to spend time with their grandmother, but I saw what he didn't. Margaret was poisoning them against me. She'd tell Ethan that I was too strict. She'd tell Lily that I didn't love them as much as she did. She'd buy them expensive gifts and whisper, "Don't tell your mother, she'll just get jealous." The kids started pulling away from me. They'd run to Margaret when they were upset. They'd ask for her instead of me at bedtime. And every time it happened, Margaret would smile at me with this smug, victorious look. She was winning, and I was losing everything. The final straw came 3 months later. I'd gone to the grocery store, leaving Michael home with the kids. When I returned, Margaret was there. Again. But this time, something was different. She was in my kitchen, going through my cabinets. "What are you doing?" I asked, setting down the groceries. She didn't even look at me. "Michael asked me to organize your pantry." "It's a mess, Sarah. I don't know how you find anything in here." My blood boiled. "Get out." She turned, eyebrows raised. "Excuse me?" I said. "Get out. This is my house. You have no right to go through my things." Margaret's face hardened. She stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. "Listen to me, you little—" "Mom, what's going on?" Michael appeared in the doorway, looking between us with confusion. Margaret's expression shifted instantly. Tears filled her eyes. Her lip trembled. "Michael, I was just trying to help, and she screamed at me. I don't understand why she hates me so much." Two stared at her, stunned. She was lying, right to his face, and Michael believed her. "Sarah, what is wrong with you?" he demanded. "She's just trying to help. She's manipulating you," I shouted. "Can't you see that?" But he couldn't, or wouldn't. That night, Michael slept on the couch. And Margaret? She stayed in our guest room, smiling like she'd won the lottery. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, and made a decision. If Margaret wanted war, I'd give her war. But I had no idea just how far she was willing to go. I started paying closer attention. I watched Margaret's every move, listened to every word, and slowly I began to see the pattern. She wasn't just controlling, she was calculating. Everything she did had a purpose. Every smile, every tear, every helpful gesture was designed to push me further out of my own family. But why? What did she gain from destroying me? The answer came one evening when I overheard her talking to Michael in the living room. I'd come downstairs to get water and heard their voices drifting through the hallway. "You know I only want what's best for you, sweetheart," Margaret was saying. "But Sarah, she's not the woman you thought she was. Mom, don't start." "I'm serious, Michael. She's unstable. The way she screams at me, the way she treats the children when no one's watching, I'm worried. What if she hurts them?" My heart stopped. "That's ridiculous," Michael said, but his voice wavered. "Sarah would never—" "Are you sure?" Margaret pressed. "Because I've seen things, Michael. Bruises on Ethan's arm, Lily crying in her room, and when I ask them what's wrong, they're too scared to say. She was lying. She was making it all up." But Michael was listening. If you're really concerned, Margaret continued, maybe you should consider other arrangements. For the children's safety. Other arrangements? She wanted him to take the kids away from me. I backed away from the door, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about control anymore. Margaret wanted me gone. Completely. And she was willing to lie, manipulate, and destroy my reputation to make it happen. I needed proof. Evidence that she was lying. Something Michael couldn't ignore. I started documenting everything. Every visit, every conversation, every interaction with the kids. I installed a nanny cam in the living room. Hidden, but functional. If Margaret was going to accuse me of hurting my children, I needed proof that I wasn't. But what I captured was so much worse. One afternoon, while I was out running errands, Margaret came over. I watched the footage later that night, and what I saw made my blood run cold. She was alone with Lily. They were sitting on the couch, and Margaret was braiding Lily's hair. You know Mommy doesn't love you as much as I do, right? Margaret said softly. Lily frowned. That's not true. Oh, sweetheart, it is. Mommy's always so busy, so stressed. She doesn't have time for you. But I do. I'll always have time for you. Lily's face crumpled. Does Mommy not want me? Margaret pulled her close, stroking her hair. Of course she wants you, but she doesn't know how to show it. That's why you need to stay close to me. I'll take care of you. Always. I watched my daughter cry in Margaret's arms, and I wanted to scream. She was breaking my child's heart just to strengthen her own hold on the family. But that wasn't the worst part. Later in the footage, Margaret went into the kitchen. She opened the cabinet where I kept my vitamins and supplements. She pulled out a bottle, examined it, then slipped it into her purse. Why would she take my vitamins? I didn't understand it then, but I would. Soon. Over the next few weeks, I started feeling off, tired all the time, nauseous, headaches that wouldn't go away. I chalked it up to stress. God knows I had enough of it, but it kept getting worse. Then one morning, I collapsed in the kitchen. Just fell. Michael rushed me to the hospital panicking, while Margaret stayed home with the kids. The doctors ran tests, blood work, scans, everything. And when the results came back, they were confused. Mrs. Anderson, the doctor said carefully, your symptoms are consistent with low-level poisoning. Poisoning? I repeated, my head spinning. That's impossible. How? We found traces of a toxic substance in your blood. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but prolonged exposure could cause serious damage. Have you been exposed to any chemicals recently? Cleaning products, pesticides? I shook my head. Number. I don't understand. But then it hit me. The vitamins. Margaret had taken my vitamins. And suddenly, everything made sense. I didn't tell Michael. Not yet. I needed to be sure. When we got home, I went straight to the cabinet. The vitamin bottle was there, right where it should be. But when I opened it, I noticed something odd. The pills looked different, slightly discolored. I took one to a pharmacy and asked them to test it. The pharmacist was hesitant, but I insisted. 2 days later, she called me. Mrs. Anderson, I don't know where you got these, but they're not vitamins. They've been laced with arsenic. Arsenic. Margaret was poisoning me. Not enough to kill me quickly. Just enough to make me sick. To make me look unstable, unreliable. To convince Michael that I wasn't fit to be a mother. And once I was out of the way, she'd have everything she wanted. Full control over Michael and the kids. I sat in my car, staring at the bottle, and felt something inside me snap. Not fear, not sadness. Rage. Margaret wanted to destroy me? Fine. But I wasn't going down without a fight, and I knew exactly how to beat her at her own game. I spent the next week carefully planning my next move. I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. I had proof that someone tampered with my vitamins, but I didn't have proof that it was Margaret. She was too smart for that. She'd covered her tracks, and without concrete evidence, it would be my word against hers. And we all knew whose side Michael would take. No, I needed to catch her in the act. I needed her to incriminate herself in a way that couldn't be denied. So I set a trap. I replaced the poisoned vitamins with harmless placebos and put the bottle back in the cabinet. Then I installed another hidden camera. This one pointed directly at the kitchen counter. If Margaret came back to tamper with them again, I'd have her on video. But I needed to make sure she'd take the bait. I invited Margaret over for lunch. I know, it sounds insane, but I needed her to feel comfortable, to think she'd won. So I played the part of the defeated daughter-in-law. "Margaret," I said over the phone, my voice soft and tired. "I've been thinking, maybe you're right. Maybe I haven't been the best mother. I'd like to talk. Can you come over tomorrow?" There was a pause. Then, "Of course, dear. I'd love to." I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. She thought I was surrendering. The next day, Margaret arrived with a basket of muffins and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We sat in the kitchen, and I poured us both tea. "I've been under a lot of stress," I said, stirring my cup. "And I think I need help. With the kids, with everything. I was hoping you could be more involved." Margaret's eyes lit up. "Oh, Sarah, I'm so glad you're finally seeing reason. Of course I'll help. That's all I've ever wanted." "Thank you," I said, looking down at my tea. "I've been taking these vitamins to help with my energy levels, but they don't seem to be working. Maybe you could recommend something?" I gestured to the bottle on the counter. "The one with the placebos." Margaret's gaze flicked to the bottle, and for just a second, I saw something dark flash across her face. "Vitamins can be tricky," she said carefully. "Sometimes they interact with other medications. You have to be careful." "Yeah," I said. "I guess I haven't been careful enough." We talked for another hour. Margaret played the role of the concerned mother-in-law perfectly. She offered advice, shared stories, even hugged me before she left. But I saw her. Just before she walked out the door, she glanced back at the kitchen, at the vitamin bottle, and I knew she'd be back. 3 days later, I was upstairs when I heard the front door open. I checked the camera feed on my phone and saw Margaret letting herself in with the spare key Michael had given her. She looked around, making sure no one was home. Then she went straight to the kitchen. I watched as she pulled a small vial from her purse. She opened the vitamin bottle, carefully laced several pills with whatever poison she'd brought, and put them back. She even smiled as she did it. I had her. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because Margaret had made one fatal mistake. She'd underestimated me. She thought I was weak, broken, defeated. She had no idea I was about to turn the tables. That evening, Michael came home with his parents. Apparently, Margaret had invited herself and Robert over for dinner. Again. I didn't argue. I just smiled and said I'd be happy to cook. I made Margaret's favorite meal: roast chicken with vegetables and a side salad. I set the table beautifully, lit candles, and even opened a bottle of wine. Margaret was beaming. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd finally accepted my place beneath her. "This looks wonderful, Sarah," Robert said warmly. "He was always so kind to me." "Thank you," I said, pouring everyone a glass of wine. "I wanted tonight to be special." Margaret raised her glass. "To family," she said, looking directly at me. To family, I echoed. We ate, we talked, and everything seemed perfect. Normal. Like we were just a happy family enjoying a meal together. But I'd added one more element to the evening. Something Margaret didn't know about. On the kitchen counter, in plain view, sat a glass of water. My glass. The one I'd poured from the filtered pitcher and left sitting there before dinner. And in that glass, I'd dissolved one of the poisoned vitamins. One Margaret had laced just hours earlier. I didn't drink from it, but I made sure everyone saw it. My glass, my water, sitting there, waiting. After dinner, we moved to the living room. I excused myself to check on the kids upstairs, leaving Michael, Margaret, and Robert chatting by the fireplace. But I didn't go far. I stood at the top of the stairs, watching through the camera feed on my phone. Margaret stood up saying she needed to use the restroom. But instead of going to the bathroom, she went into the kitchen. She picked up my glass. She looked at it for a long moment, swirling the water gently. And then, with a small, satisfied smile, she poured the contents into the sink. Or at least, that's what she intended to do. But Robert had followed her. He was thirsty, he said later. He just wanted a glass of water. He saw my glass on the counter. Freshly poured, cold, inviting. And without thinking, he picked it up and drank. Margaret's face went white. "Robert, no." But it was too late. It happened fast. One moment, Robert was standing in the kitchen, smiling at his wife. The next, he was on the floor, gasping for air. "Robert!" Margaret screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. "Robert, what's wrong? What's happening?" I ran downstairs, Michael right behind me. We found Robert convulsing, his face pale and sweating. "Call 911!" I shouted. Michael grabbed his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed. I knelt beside Robert, trying to keep him conscious, while Margaret sobbed over him. "I don't understand," she kept saying. "I don't understand what happened. He was fine. He was fine." But I knew exactly what happened. And so did she. The paramedics arrived within minutes. They loaded Robert onto a stretcher and rushed him to the hospital. Margaret rode with him, and Michael and I followed in our car. The whole way there, Michael kept asking, "What happened? Did he have a heart attack? A stroke?" "I don't know," I said quietly. But I did know, and soon everyone else would too. At the hospital, doctors worked frantically to stabilize Robert. They ran tests, pumped his stomach, administered treatments. And when they finally came out to talk to us, their faces were grim. "He's been poisoned," the doctor said. "We found high levels of arsenic in his system. Another hour, and he might not have made it." Margaret gasped, covering her mouth. "Poisoned? How is that possible?" The doctor looked at me. "Mrs. Anderson, the paramedics mentioned he drank from a glass in your kitchen. Is that correct?" "Yes," I said. "It was my glass. I poured it earlier and left it on the counter." "We'll need to test the water in your home," the doctor said, "and we'll need to contact the police." Margaret's face went pale. "The police? Why?" "Because this was attempted murder," the doctor said bluntly. "And we need to find out who's responsible." I turned to Margaret. She was staring at me, her eyes wide with fear. She knew. She knew I knew. And now, so did everyone else. The police arrived at our house within the hour. They searched the kitchen, tested the water, and found exactly what I'd known they'd find. Traces of arsenic in the pitcher, in the glass, in the vitamin bottle. They questioned all of us. Michael, Margaret, Robert once he was conscious, and me. I told them everything. About the vitamins, the hidden cameras, the footage of Margaret tampering with the bottle. I showed them the evidence I'd collected over the past weeks. Margaret denied it all. She cried, she begged, she played the victim perfectly. "I would never hurt anyone," she sobbed. "I love my family. I was just trying to help Sarah. She's been so unstable lately." But the evidence didn't lie. The footage showed her tampering with the vitamins. The pharmacy confirmed the pills had been laced with arsenic, and the doctors confirmed that Robert had ingested the same poison that had been slowly making me sick. Margaret had poisoned me, and in trying to cover her tracks, she'd nearly destroyed her own husband. It took 3 days, but eventually, Margaret broke. She confessed everything: how she'd been slipping arsenic into my vitamins for months, how she'd planned to make me look unstable, unfit to be a mother, how she'd hoped Michael would leave me and give her full custody of the kids. She'd never meant for Robert to get hurt. That had been an accident, a horrible, tragic accident. But the intent was clear. She'd tried to destroy me, and she'd nearly succeeded. I visited Margaret in jail. I don't know why. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I needed to look her in the eye and understand how someone could be so cruel. She was sitting in the visiting room, looking small and frail. Nothing like the woman who'd terrorized me for years. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you hate me so much?" She looked up, and for the first time, I saw real emotion in her eyes. Not anger, not malice, jealousy. "You took him from me," she said quietly. "Michael was my world. And then you came along, and suddenly I wasn't enough anymore. Did you know? Before I drank from that glass?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized he'd been carrying this question for months. "I knew someone had poisoned my vitamins," I said carefully, "and I suspected Margaret. But I didn't poison that glass, Robert. I tested the vitamins, dissolved one in water to show the police as evidence later. I never intended for anyone to drink it. It was partly true. I had set a trap, but not the one he thought." Robert nodded slowly. "She nearly killed me trying to kill you." "I know," I said softly, "and I'm sorry." He shook his head. "Don't apologize. You saved your own life, and in doing so, you saved mine too. If you hadn't exposed her, she might have tried again." We sat in silence, watching the sun set over the yard. "Do you think she'll ever understand what she did?" Robert asked. "No," I said. "People like Margaret never do. They'll always find a way to justify their actions, to play the victim. That's how they survive." Robert sighed. "I loved her, you know. For 40 years, I loved her. I thought I knew her." "You knew the version of her she wanted you to see," I said gently. "We all did." He nodded, his eyes distant. "Sometimes I wonder if there were signs, things I missed. But then I realize it doesn't matter anymore. She made her choices, and now we all have to live with the consequences." "We do," I agreed. "But we're still here. We're still standing. And that's what matters." Robert smiled, a sad, tired smile. "You're a strong woman, Sarah. Stronger than I ever gave you credit for. Michael's lucky to have you." "Thank you," I said. "And for what it's worth, I'm glad you're still here." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "Me too." A year has passed since that horrible night. A year since Robert collapsed in our kitchen. A year since Margaret was sentenced and carted off to prison. Life looks different now. Better in some ways, harder in others. Michael and I are still together, but our marriage is forever changed. There's a distance between us that wasn't there before. A wariness, a hesitation. I love him. I think he loves me. But we both know that trust, once shattered, leaves scars. He's tried to make amends. He cut off all contact with Margaret. He goes to therapy twice a week. He's more present with the kids, more attentive to me. He asks questions now instead of making assumptions. He listens. But sometimes, late at night, I still wonder, if I hadn't caught Margaret, if I hadn't set that trap, would he have ever believed me? Or would he have let her destroy me completely? I don't ask him. I'm not sure I want to know the answer. Ethan and Lily are resilient, the way children often are. They've adjusted to life without Margaret. They don't ask about her anymore. They've stopped having nightmares. But I see the impact in small ways. Ethan is more protective of me now. If someone raises their voice, he tenses. If I seem upset, he hovers nearby, asking if I'm okay. He's 10 years old, and he's already learned that the people you love can hurt you. Lily is different. She's become clingy, afraid of being left alone. She wants constant reassurance that I'm not going anywhere, that I'm safe, that I love her. Every night before bed, she makes me promise I'll be there in the morning. I promise, baby, I tell her. I'm not going anywhere. Grandma promised too, she whispers. And then she left. It breaks my heart every time. Michael and I enrolled them in therapy, a child psychologist who specializes in family trauma. She says they're doing well, all things considered, that with time and support, they'll heal. I hope she's right. 3 months ago, I received a letter from Margaret. I almost threw it away without reading it. What could she possibly have to say that would matter? But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was long, rambling, full of excuses and justifications. She talked about her childhood, her first marriage, her fears and insecurities. She said she never meant to hurt anyone, that she just wanted to protect her family. And then, at the very end, she wrote, "I know you'll never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to understand. I did it because I loved him. I loved my son so much that I couldn't bear to lose him." I read that line over and over, and I realized something. Margaret still didn't get it. Love isn't supposed to destroy. Love isn't supposed to control. Love isn't poisoning someone because you're afraid of being replaced. That's not love. That's obsession. That's possession. That's sickness. I wrote back. One sentence. What you did wasn't love. It was fear. And fear destroys everything it touches. I never heard from her again. Robert has become our anchor. He shows up every Sunday without fail, bringing groceries, cooking dinner, playing with the kids. He's filled the role Margaret could have had, should have had, if she hadn't been so consumed by jealousy. He's teaching Ethan how to fish, just like he promised before any of this happened. He braids Lily's hair and tells her she's beautiful. He asks me how I'm doing and actually listens to the answer. "You didn't deserve what she did to you," he told me once. "None of us did." "I know," I said, "but we survived it. That's what matters." "Still," he said quietly, "I wish I'd seen it sooner. I wish I'd protected you." "You're protecting us now," I said. "That's enough." And it is. Robert's presence has been healing in ways I didn't expect. He's proof that not everyone in Michael's family is toxic, that some people are genuinely good, genuinely kind. He gives me hope. Sometimes I still wonder, what if Robert hadn't drunk from that glass? What if Margaret had gotten away with it? Would I be dead now? Would I be in a mental institution, declared unfit, while Margaret raised my children? The thought keeps me up at night. But then I remember, I had evidence. I had cameras, documentation, proof. Even if Robert hadn't drunk the poison, I could have taken everything to the police. Margaret would have been caught eventually. At least, that's what I tell myself. The truth is, I'll never know for sure. And maybe that's okay. maybe some questions don't need answers. I've learned something about myself through all of this. I'm not the weak, passive woman Margaret thought I was. I fought back. I protected myself. I protected my children. I refused to be a victim. And when the time came, I set a trap that exposed her for exactly what she was. Some people might say I went too far, that I manipulated the situation, that I put Robert in danger by leaving that glass on the counter. But I disagree. Margaret put Robert in danger. Margaret chose to poison those vitamins. Margaret chose to tamper with that bottle over and over again. All I did was give her enough rope to hang herself. My therapist asked me once, "Do you feel guilty?" about what happened to Robert. I thought about it for a long time before answering. "I feel sorry," I said finally. "I feel terrible that he got hurt. But guilty? Number. I didn't poison him. Margaret did. And if I hadn't exposed her, she would have kept poisoning me until I was dead or destroyed. So no, I don't feel guilty. I feel grateful that we all survived." The therapist nodded. That's a healthy perspective. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if that's true. Because part of me, a small dark part, knew there was a chance someone else might drink from that glass. And I left it there anyway. Does that make me as manipulative as Margaret? As calculated? I don't know. And I'm not sure I want to find out. Michael and I sit across from our counselor every Thursday evening. It's been a year of sessions, and we've made progress. Slowly, painfully, but progress nonetheless. "Do you trust her?" the counselor asked Michael during one session. "Yes," he said immediately. "Do you trust him?" she asked me. I hesitated. "I'm trying to." Michael flinched. "Sarah, let her finish," the counselor said gently. I took a deep breath. "I want to trust you, Michael. I really do. But every time I remember how you took her side, how you dismissed me, how you let her into our home even when I begged you not to, it's hard. It's really hard." "I'm sorry," Michael said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. If I could go back and change it—" "But you can't," I said. "None of us can. We can only move forward. And I'm trying. I'm really trying." The counselor looked between us. Trust is rebuilt through consistent action over time. Michael, you can apologize as much as you want, but Sarah needs to see change. She needs to see that you prioritize her, that you believe her, that you protect her. "I will," Michael promised. "I am." "Then keep doing it," the counselor said, "every single day. And Sarah, you need to give him the opportunity to prove himself. That means being willing to let him in even when it's scary." I nodded. "I know. It's not easy. Some days I want to pack up the kids and leave, start over somewhere new, somewhere Margaret's shadow doesn't reach. But then I see Michael trying, really trying, and I remember why I fell in love with him in the first place. So I stay, and I hope, and I try." 2 weeks ago, Margaret's lawyer contacted me. She wanted to see me. One last time. I said no. Michael said no. Even Robert said no. But the requests kept coming. Letters, phone calls, messages through her lawyer. She was desperate to talk to me. Finally, I agreed. Not because I owed her anything, but because I needed closure. I needed to look her in the eye one last time and walk away knowing I'd survived her. The prison was cold and gray, exactly how you'd imagine. I sat in the visiting room, waiting, my heart pounding. When Margaret walked in, I barely recognized her. She'd aged years in the past 12 months. Her hair was gray. Her face was gaunt. She looked small, broken. She sat down across from me, her hands shaking. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I didn't respond. I just waited. "I've had a lot of time to think," she continued. about what I did, about why I did it. And I need you to know I'm sorry. I raised an eyebrow. Are you? Yes, she said, tears filling her eyes. I'm sorry for what I put you through. I'm sorry for hurting Robert. I'm sorry for everything. Why? I asked. Why are you sorry? Because you got caught? Because you're in prison? Or because you genuinely regret what you did? Margaret looked down at her hands. All of it. That's not good enough, I said coldly. You tried to kill me, Margaret. You poisoned me for months. You tried to turn my children against me. You manipulated my husband. You destroyed your own marriage. And you're sorry because you got caught. No, she whispered. I'm sorry because I was wrong. I thought I was protecting Michael, but I was destroying him. I thought I was helping, but I was hurting everyone I loved. You didn't love us, I said. You loved control. And when you couldn't control me, you tried to eliminate me. Margaret's face crumpled. I know. We sat in silence for a long moment. Do you want me to forgive you? I asked finally. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Do you think you ever could? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said. I don't think I can. What you did was unforgivable. But I can let it go. I can stop letting it control my life, and that's the best I can offer you. Margaret nodded slowly. That's more than I deserve. Yes, I agreed. It is. I stood up ready to leave. Sarah, Margaret called out. Will you tell Michael? Will you tell him I love him? That I'm sorry? I looked back at her. Number. If you want to tell him that, you'll have to do it yourself. I'm done being your messenger. And I walked out, leaving her sitting alone in that cold, gray room. I haven't told Michael about the visit. I'm not sure I will. He's finally starting to move on, to rebuild his relationship with his father, to be present with our family. Telling him about Margaret's apology would only drag him backward. And he doesn't need that. None of us do. Robert asked me once if I thought Margaret would ever truly change. I don't know, I said honestly. But it doesn't matter. She's not our problem anymore. Do you ever think about her? He asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But less and less. She's becoming a memory, a scar, something that happened to us but doesn't define us. Robert smiled. That's good. That's healing. And he's right. I am healing. We all are. Despite everything, the pain, the betrayal, the fear, I'm grateful. I'm grateful I survived. I'm grateful my children are safe. I'm grateful for Robert's kindness and Michael's efforts to change. I'm grateful I found my strength when I needed it most. And I'm grateful that Margaret's plan failed, that her jealousy and manipulation didn't win. She wanted to destroy me, but instead, she destroyed herself. And I'm still here, still standing, still fighting. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Michael and I will make it. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll rebuild our marriage into something stronger. Maybe we'll realize the damage is too deep to repair. But either way, I know I'll be okay, because I've survived the worst. And anything else life throws at me will pale in comparison. Ethan and Lily will grow up knowing they come from strength. They'll know that their mother fought for them, protected them, refused to let anyone destroy their family. And Robert will always be there, a quiet anchor, a reminder that goodness exists even in the darkest times. As for Margaret, she'll spend the next 15 years behind bars, living with the consequences of her choices. And me? I'll spend the rest of my life moving forward, building, healing, loving, because that's what survivors do. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that toxic people will always reveal themselves eventually. They can't help it. Their need for control, their jealousy, their manipulation, it always comes to the surface. And when it does, you have two choices: let them destroy you or fight back. I chose to fight, and I won. Margaret tried to poison me, but in the end, her own toxicity poisoned her. She lost her husband, her son, her grandchildren, her freedom, her life. And I'm still here, breathing, living, thriving. That's the best revenge of all. It's been exactly 1 year since Robert was released from the hospital. 1 year since Margaret was sentenced. 1 year since our lives changed forever. We don't celebrate it. We don't talk about it. But we all feel it. The weight of that date. The memory of how close we came to losing everything. Michael suggested we do something as a family. Something positive. So we planned a weekend trip to the mountains. Just the 4 of us and Robert. No drama, no fear, no poison. Just family. On the last night of the trip, we sat around a campfire. The kids were roasting marshmallows, laughing, their faces glowing in the firelight. Robert sat beside me, watching them with a soft smile. "They're going to be okay," he said quietly. "Yeah," I agreed. "You did that?" he said, turning to me. "You saved them. You saved all of us." "I saved myself," I corrected gently. "The rest of you were just collateral rescue." He laughed. "Well, I'm grateful for the collateral." Michael sat on my other side, his hand finding mine. "I'm sorry," he said for the 1,000th time. "For everything." "I know," I said. "And I'm still here. We're still here. That has to count for something." He squeezed my hand. "It counts for everything." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire crackle and pop. And for the first time in over a year, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Betrayal comes in many forms. Sometimes it's loud and obvious. Sometimes it's quiet and insidious. A slow poison that seeps into your life until you can barely recognize yourself. Margaret's betrayal was both. She smiled while destroying me. She hugged her son while manipulating him. She played the victim while being the villain. And she almost got away with it. But here's what I learned. You can't control what other people do. You can't stop them from lying, manipulating, or hurting you. But you can control how you respond. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to fight back. You can let them destroy you, or you can expose them. You can let their poison kill you, or you can turn it against them. I chose to fight, and I won. Not because I'm special. Not because I'm stronger or smarter or better than anyone else, but because I refused to give up. I refused to let her win. And in the end, that made all the difference. If you're in a situation like mine, please hear me. You are stronger than you think. You are capable of more than you realize, and you deserve to be believed, protected, and loved. Don't let toxic people convince you otherwise. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Speak your truth. And if no one believes you, find a way to make them see, because your life is worth fighting for. Margaret tried to poison me, but her husband drank it instead. Some people call it karma. Some call it justice. Some call it divine intervention. I call it survival, because at the end of the day, I'm still here, still breathing, still living. And Margaret? She's exactly where she belongs. This is Sarah, and this is my story. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, no matter what you're going through, you are not alone. You are stronger than your circumstances, and you deserve a life free from manipulation and fear. Stay strong, stay safe, and never stop fighting for yourself. Until next time, Also, share your ideas in the comments section and tell us where you're watching us from.